Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Palace. Crystal Palace have beaten Fiorentina 3-0 in the first leg of the Conference League quarter-final. And what a win it was. Obviously, you can see there's no Luke today. He's doing his actual job, which involves the Grand National this week, which is pretty cool. So it's just me before we get a video out to kind of talk about what happened last night, talk about the game, talk about how we played. So yeah, before we get into it, of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, all of that good stuff. Check out me and Luke's links both down in the description. And without further ado, let's get into it. How did we do against Fiorentina? Well, to be honest, it was kind of the perfect performance for me in most aspects. You know, I think that we were brilliant all over the pitch. We completely dominated them, aside from that kind of brief spell in the second half. But we'll start from the beginning. The lineup was interesting. He opted for Gesson over Pino. I thought he was going to go with Pino, but Gesson did well. You know, I think we started the game very brightly. Maybe a little bit lackluster in terms of creating chances, but eventually we kind of started to kick on a little bit and push on. Of course, we won a penalty, which at the time, from where I was sat in the Homesdale, I thought he'd given a goal kick when it should have been a corner. From our perspective, Gesson's shot looked heavily deflected. But it was an awful tackle watching it back, and it was actually a good decision from a referee that, in my opinion, had a pretty poor game generally, but we can talk about that a little bit later. JP steps up, massive chance for him, and obviously he scores, the whole crowd booms, including myself. But I wasn't very pleased with JP's performance in general. I thought he looked very unfit. He was slow, his pressing wasn't great, and his touch was awful. A lot of the times when that ball went up to him, you maybe noticed the quality that someone like Strand Larsen has when you don't have him in the team. And when you're relying on Mateta to kind of trap the ball, struggling a little bit against two quite weak central defenders, I thought. They weren't very good. Anyway, second half continues. Superb pass by Daichi Kamada, who for me was man of the match by some distance. Chip ball to Munoz, great acrobatic kind of effort. I don't know whether he was aiming for Mateta. David De Gea makes a great save. A few people around me were kind of questioning Mateta's finishing there, but David De Gea is one of the best ever goalkeepers in terms of saving with his feet. That is kind of what he's built his career on, and it's a bloody good career that he's had. So it was a great save. Great finish from Mitchell though, and how awesome was it to have an academy graduate score in a European quarterfinal? Just mental. I just wish Ty celebrated a little bit more. He kind of does the whole like run over to the corner and just yes. I wish he'd just do a knee slide, do something mega, because honestly he's been fantastic this year, and it's just a testament to him, really, how much he's improved, because going forward was always his kind of limit and the kind of the limitations to his game that we always highlighted. But now he just looks so confident going forward. He's so perfect for this system, and honestly, cracking player. Love the bloke. Let's talk about the rest of the first half. I think defensively we were excellent. Camvo is one of the best players in terms of 19-year-olds I've ever seen in person. He is so bloody good. He reads the game so well. He's aggressive in the right moments. He's fast. He makes good decisions. Yes, I think the errors that he's made, he's not really made errors for a while, but when he did make those mistakes way back when, you kind of still get that feeling when he gets on the ball and he does a little turn. But he was fantastic. Almost scored an absolute wonder goal when he ran through basically their entire team. And if anything, the finish was the easiest part of that chance, and he fluffed it somewhat, didn't put it either side, just straight at the hair. But he was fantastic. Lacroix was superb, just brilliant. And Chris Richards again. We were a little bit all over the place in the back line, which I saw Glasner kind of shouting at them about. Just in terms of, we were obviously going for the kill in some aspects, and it just kind of meant a little bit on occasion that they kind of went to attack and we were a little bit disjointed, maybe hadn't transitioned over to the left or the right as quickly as we should have done. But ultimately, they created next to nothing in that first half. They were really poor. And I was actually quite surprised, because I know that they've had a poor season. And of course, they're missing, is it Mandroxara or whatever his name is? He's one of their better players. I know he came on late on. He has been injured. Moise Keane out injured. And I think, was it Panicelli maybe? Something like that. Their striker. He didn't have the best of games. Bit of a physical boy. Put himself about a bit, but didn't really trouble anyone. Or definitely not Dean Henderson in that first half. Anyway, second half comes along. Of course, they start the better team. You'd expect that. They've definitely had a rocket up their arses. And a bit of context for you all for the situation at Fiorentina this season. Basically, their fans want them to survive in the Serie A, which they should do. They're 15th now. They were bottom for a long time. And they want basically the entire squad gone, axed management, ownership. They are fuming with their club. Just scrolling through some of the replies to their socials last night was quite interesting. Called Palace an average size club, which I think we take, to be honest. Anyway, second half they start better. Of course, hit the bar, force a decent save from that kind of crossing and fast header straight at Henderson. Though no real trouble. Dean didn't really have to make many kind of big saves at all, to be honest. And yeah, it kind of continued about 20 minutes into that second half once they kind of settled down. And all the Palace fans around me were going like, come on. Every time we got the ball, let's go. Just calm down. All we had to do was calm down, and the players did it really well. And you saw it work, right? Get on the ball, slow it down, keep the ball. You don't have to force anything. You really don't. There's no need to kind of be forcing it when you're 2-0 up already. Yes, of course, you want more goals to take back to Florence for this second leg, and we got that in the end. But ultimately, when they're kind of on that wave of momentum, all you need to do is just kind of nullify it. And that's exactly what we did. And I think that's a credit to the team and the players, because I think not too long ago, a massive issue with how we played was our game management and the decision-making during games and kind of trying a little bit too hard at times. And sometimes it's really important to just have your centre-halves put their foot on the ball and just wait a minute. And then midfielders do the same. And speaking of midfielders, I think Daichi Kamada was flawless. He was so good. He just is such a vital part of this team in terms of keeping play ticking over. And to be honest, I'm kind of gutted if he leaves in the summer, because I think he's just such a good player. Adam Wharton was fantastic as well. Again, it was one of those games for him where he just kind of didn't really do anything wrong whatsoever. And I was just really impressed with them. Daniel Munoz we also need to talk about, because he was absolutely fantastic. The ball that he put in for Mateta's chance and Tyreek Mitchell's goal. He put in some excellent crosses all night. He's such a threat on that right, isn't he? He's just so important to how we play. And it's just so good to have him back fit. There was one moment in the second half where he jumps and sticks his leg above his head to control the ball, and I just thought, all hamstrings. And then I remembered that Daniel Munoz is kind of a bit superhuman in that sense, and he doesn't seem to feel pain like the rest of us do. I felt my hamstring go when he stuck his leg up there. Anyway, we move on. Second half, quite a lot of chances, Mateta had that massive chance at the back post. And again, I feel like, Strand Larsen probably quite within his rights to sit on the bench and feel a bit disgruntled that in all of the times he's played in Europe, we haven't created too many chances for him. But then the one game he's suspended, a lot of chances for Mateta. And he wasn't great, I'll be honest. I think if he doesn't score the penalty, you kind of round that off as a pretty shit performance from him. And that's, to be expected. He's not played much. He's unfit. But I think he's got a lot of work to do, because Strand Larsen is head and shoulders above him in terms of ability, in terms of what he offers to the team, in terms of how important he is to how we play and how influential he's been since he's come into the team. He's just miles clear. Anyway, second half progresses. We kept having chances, we came close. And then ultimately, 90th minute, we get a third goal, which was really well worked again. Superb cross by Kamada, and Sarr does what Mateta couldn't with a harder chance. Does so well there to head it into the ground perfectly, to just keep it just above De Gea's arm. Great header. Sarr has just been phenomenal this year. He really has been one of just the best signings in our club's history for the price we paid, for the return we've got from him. He's just fantastic, isn't he? As a whole, a good performance, You need to make sure that when you're playing in games like that, you take advantage of playing at home. And I think that we did that to a T, We were fantastic. The atmosphere was good. I thought, the display before the game was fantastic. But yeah, I thought it was a good performance. The referee, I wasn't happy with, really, to be honest. Kind of voiced my opinions on that quite a lot. I made Justin Devaney laugh at one point, because I was like, Justin, go and give the ref a slap. And that made him giggle, so that was funny. When he was warming up, of course, we're not like best mates. But the ref was poor. Lots of decisions that kind of raised the eyebrow. Lots of non-fouls that he didn't give to Palace that were kind of very blatant. Especially our forwards, like just getting the shit kicked out of them. And he just kind of kept doing his little waggy finger. And we also need to talk about that full-time whistle, because that was weird, right? He's done the whole and then you think it's all over. It is, right? And then he blows his whistle again and again. It was a bit like, he clearly wanted to be the main character. It was clearly his big night out. But luckily it didn't impact the result too much or the performance. We also need to talk about Jeremy Pino, because he came on and he looked fantastic. And this is a player which, as you'll know, I've kind of criticised quite openly this season because I don't think he had been good enough. But it feels like he's kind of getting there now. The way he came on, I mean, he just dribbles through players, and he kind of wasn't doing that before. And I think he has the quality to do that. He really does have the quality to beat 3 or 4 players and get a shot off. And I thought he was pretty unfortunate on a couple of occasions. I think on a couple of occasions as well, he maybe made the wrong decision when he got into the box and, passing instead of shooting and vice versa. But again, that's to be expected. This is a player that, is still quite young and still very raw in terms of his talent. But he's also a player that, fucking hell, we've got a great player on our hands. He looks fantastic. And it's just so good having these options in the forward line because I think Gesson played well. I think that he, is one of the few players in our squad that has the ability to kind of run at and beat a man. And I think he does it very consistently. I thought Chris Richards was fantastic. I'm just trying to think of the players that I haven't mentioned yet. I thought he was really, really good. Especially considering he wasn't one of the players that was booked, but he did get a booking for, again, a tackle in the middle of the pitch that he just won the ball, and I didn't really understand that. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for talking about Palace's game. I'll quickly tell you about what happened in the other games because I think it's important to know about the kind of context of the competition. So in terms of who we're likely to play in the next round, it's going to be either Shakhtar Donetsk or AZ Alkmaar, of course, who we beat 3-1 at home in the league phase. Shakhtar won 3-0 at home. Also important to note that they play in Krakow and they play in a 35,000 seat stadium and they only had 10,000 people there yesterday. So I don't see why Palace can't take... I mean, it's not going to happen, but I don't see why they can't just give Palace 15,000 away seats. We'd sell it out pretty comfortably, I reckon. But, alas, they won 3-0. So it's looking likely there will be another trip to Poland, and this time against a better team, because in terms of Ukrainian football, Shakhtar are probably the best. And then, on the other side of the draw, we had Rayo Vallecano, who, I'm trying to remember who they played. AEK Larnaca. No, AEK Athens. Why? My brain's not working. AEK Athens beat them 3-0, very convincing as well. I watched the highlights; they absolutely dominated. They looked decent, Vallecano, and they will play either Mainz or Strasbourg. Mainz won 2-0 last night, which is quite an interesting result. Bit of an eyebrow raiser because I think for a lot of neutrals, Strasbourg are kind of the favourites, maybe aside from Palace. But the thing I've got, excuse me, long day yesterday, and I've been on overnights this week, which has not helped. So my sleeping pattern is kaput. But it's looking likely that the semi-finals at this stage will be between Crystal Palace and Shakhtar Donetsk, and then on the other side of the draw, FC Mainz versus Rayo Vallecano. So, interesting. I think that we have the ability and the quality and just the overall kind of experience as a club, with the FA Cup run last year, to just be calm. We were so calm in that quarter-final against Fulham in the FA Cup last year, and I think last night really reminded me of that. I found it really interesting watching the Conference League because whilst obviously I really want us to win it, I haven't really felt stressed very much watching these games. Even last night, a lot of my mates were saying, I'm shitting myself, I'm really anxious. And I don't know if it's just me, but when I'm in the ground or when I'm at these Conference League games or when I'm watching them at home, I just feel such a sense of calm and just a sense of, no, the boys have got it. We know what we're doing. We've been here before. We know how to do this. Because realistically, the standard of teams we're playing is not as good as the teams we play week in, week out. And, we've got Newcastle at the weekend, which will be probably a tough game. But they're not doing that well this year. But getting a 3-0 lead into the second leg is massive. Because aside from an entire catastrophic capitulation in Florence next week, we should be through now. And you don't want to tempt fate too much. But the quality that we have, the lack of quality in their side, and also just the kind of experience we've got. Excuse me. This is a team that has been to the final twice since this competition's birth. They've been in it basically every year in Fiorentina. They're a decent side, and historically, but this year just they're not there. And I think the atmosphere around the club is. I'm trying to think of a comparison to English football. Maybe say Tottenham Hotspur in terms of how their fans are feeling. They're underperforming massively, right? They've kind of consistently been a top 6 side, and now they're 15th fighting relegation, which is, very Spursy of them, if you like. But alas, it's a great win, a superb result. I thought the atmosphere was brilliant. It was so good to be back at Selhurst. Obviously, I've not been that much this year because I've moved into my own flat and that shit's expensive. They never warn you how expensive that is, do they? But yeah, I've not had as much money as I would like. So we're getting settled and then we'll be at more games I'm not sure if Luke's going to Florence next week. I'm sure he is. I obviously won't be. But I'll be watching at home, and we will also probably talk after Newcastle to discuss whatever happens in that game, of course, Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to watching that one. And I think I'm going to that one as well, so that's good. But yes, I think that's about it. Don't really need to say much more other than a bloody brilliant win. Superb performance. Exactly what you need in a European knockout. I got myself a half and half scarf, which I know is a little bit tin pot. I don't normally get them. But I just felt like, you don't always play Fiorentina. Just like I might get one for kind of the Shakhtar and then the final if we go, because why wouldn't you think it's good memorabilia? So there you go. Great win. Just superb. Palace, I love you. Honestly, what a club. What an atmosphere. What a team. What a place to go, Selhurst Park. And yeah, massive win, 3-0 up the boys. No complaints from me, which is a rarity, but a good sign. Up the Palace, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.